Hi everyone, my name is Tracy of Not Afraid of Color. Welcome back to my channel. I will be doing another demonstration for Technique Junkies stamps. And this stamp name is Ask a Woman. Now I'm going to show you step by step how I created this card using a couple of different Technique Junkies stamps. The first one, of course, is the first one that I made, and I'm going to show you how I made that. So I've got the Ask a Woman stamp. If you think it can't be done, ask a woman. It is SD 1160, part of the April 2022 release. And by the way, if you want to purchase this or any of these stamps from the new release, they are 15% off until April 8th. If you want to purchase anything else, you can use my coupon code TJ10 Color. So I'm going to be using the newest ink from Tim Holtz. And then I'm also going to be using the Vixen stamp set. And I use these quite frequently. I felt like this was a great investment because they go with so many things, particularly snarky things. So I've got her, and I've made a mask for her, and I've shown you in another video how I make my masks. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. I also, though, used a background stamp, but here's the saltwater taffy in oxide, and I'm going to be using also the saltwater taffy in ink to get a tone-on-tone color situation. And then I'll be using the background stamp Dotted Blooms S897 to get that kind of retro-looking effect going on there. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to start out with a piece of paper, and this is going to be my Bristol Smooth. And I want to color that first. That's the first thing I'm going to do, but I've got to put my mask on there first. After I've stamped her, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and get my stamping platform because I want to get her nice and dark. And then I'm going to set her aside to dry because I don't want my mask pulling up any of my ink. So let me move my little piece of acetate that I use to place my word stamps. And this one doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be trimmed down quite a ways, but I am trying to get it in the center so that when I do trim it down, I get both sides even. And I'm going to be using the VersaFine Clair in Nocturne. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay some ink on the red rubber stamp. These are great quality red rubber stamps. You could use any black ink you want depending on what you want to do with it. If you're going to color it, depending on what you're going to color it with, you can use Nocturne, you can use Archival, you can use Catherine Pooler, whatever suits you. But for this one, I'll be using the Nocturne, and I'm going to give her about 3 stamps so I make sure that it's nice and dark. Yep, let's go one more. There we go. So it's a step-by-step process here. And let me go ahead and get that ink out of my way so I don't get my hands in it. I've already had my hands in ink because I'm making more than one video today, so I'm just kind of doing them in succession until I've got them all done, and then I have a live tonight, and this is going to be future dated. So now I'm going to use this stamp here, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I am going to stamp that down on my Accent Opaque 80-pound cardstock because I will be fussy cutting it, and I don't like fussy cutting thick paper. I think it looks sloppy, so I do it on the thinner paper, but nothing lower than 80 pounds. So I'm just going to lay that on my stamp platform, make sure it's right side up. Not that it matters, but, you know, just for help for my brain. And I am going to also be heat embossing this. So I'm going to use the Judikins embossing powder, which is a sparkly embossing powder. And no, I'm not going to be using Versamark. I'm going to be using VersaFine Clair. Yeah, it happens. In the Nocturne. And I will stamp this down a couple of times too to make sure I have nice wet ink. And I'm not concerned about putting anti-static powder on there simply because it doesn't matter. It's not going to really show up because I will be fussy cutting this and I won't be adding any other inks to it. If you're going to add other inks or watercolor or something like that, you want to make sure that your embossing powder is only going where you want it. All right, so one more here just for good measure. I probably need to re-ink my VersaFine Clear because I use it so much. Feels like I just re-inked it a week ago. Never mind. There we go, nice and black. Let me set this aside. Get everything out of my way. And then I've got this little tray that I like to use because I am too fiddly with the coffee filters. And I'm just going to pour this Judikins embossing powder over it and just kind of gently tap it off because I really don't feel like having this all over my mat. I already have some on my mat. You can get it cleaned off, but you have to use, I at least have to use like a paper towel and some hand sanitizer to get it to come up. So I'm going to go ahead and emboss this down. Not pretty, just a nice black sparkly. I want to make sure that it's all really good and embossed. There we go. And then I'm going to set that aside to let it cool. And now I'm going to be doing my matting layer. So I'm going to grab a piece of black paper, and I want to say this is Simon Says stamp. I lost the label to it, so who knows. It's black cardstock, whatever. It is 100, I want to say it's 110 pound. And I'm going to trim that down to 4 by 5 1/4 for my matting layer. And you can use white cardstock and black ink. I like to use the black because then I don't have to worry about covering up any white core. Because I'm picky about those cores showing through. So I'm going to just grab my Versamark ink pad here. And I'm going to just kind of swipe it along the bottom pretty thick. I want to make sure that the whole thing gets covered. And I like to do one side at a time. Well, 1/2 at a time. So that I have something to hold on to and I don't make a mess. And I'll go ahead and again use my Judikins sparkly embossing powder here. And I got this on Amazon over a year ago. I imagine you can still get it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss one side, and then I'll just do the other side. I had a lot of fun. I made a card with more than one cards with some, but I made a card with every single one of the new release from Technique Junkies for April. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not worried about that because that's going to be on the inside of the card, except for the fact that I just got it all over my silicone mat. That's okay. All right, so I'm just going to make sure I've got embossing ink on this side. And I'll go ahead and pour my embossing powder on. All right, and now let's get that heat embossed. See, meanwhile, my lovely lady is off to the side making sure she's plenty dry so that when I put my mask down on her, it doesn't pull up the ink or smudge or anything like that, because I hate it when my stuff smudges. I'm not a person that's crazy about do-overs, so there's that. I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to go back to work on her. And I am going to try and clean off some of that sparkly stuff there best I can. And let me go ahead and put away my embossing powder because, yeah, I'll have an accident. And see here, I'm using hand sanitizer and just a regular rag to get it up. And the regular rag doesn't really get it up. I don't know why, but a paper towel does. Never mind. I just want to make sure there's no excess ink anywhere so I don't get black somewhere, because that's going to be me. If I can do it, I will. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my mask. Again, what I do is I stamp on a piece of my transfer tape, and then I put another piece over top of it, and then I cut it out. So just want to make sure that she's completely covered here. And I can see over to one side I didn't get her covered properly, so I need to pull it back up. And the only thing is you want to pull up gently on it. It doesn't tend to stick to the paper, you know, very badly. And it loses its stickiness as, you know, the more times you stick it down. But this is probably good for 4 or 5 uses. So a lot of times when I get a new stamp that I know I'm going to want to mask, I go ahead and just make my mask right away. So now we've got her all masked off. She's not going to get dirty. And I can see I already smudged a little bit there just above her head. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but I can see it, and that's what counts. So I'm going to get my mono sand eraser here and just kind of clean that off a little bit before I start ink blending on here. Now, to cut out the inside of her arms, I did use a craft knife, so there's that. If you are, you know, thinking about making masks, intricate masks, that you will need to use a craft knife. So I'm going to go in first with the saltwater taffy in the oxide, and I'm just going to fill in the page. You know, I'm not too worried about the very edges because I will be trimming this down. But just making sure I get color down here. Okay, good with that. Now we need to do our tone on tone. So I'm just going to kind of wipe up here, and I'm going to grab my stamping platform because I know I'm going to need to go more than once using an ink over an oxide, and especially the distress inks. So I may need to go 2 or 3 times, and I'm not too worried about what's there, but I will wipe it off just because, I don't know. And I'll go ahead and set her down, and I'll get out my boho or my dotted blooms stamp. It's also kind of stuck because, yeah, I end up throwing those little backer things away. I'm just going to lay it over the top, and I will use my magnet just because, and grab the stamp onto the platform, pull it back up, and grab the Distress Ink Saltwater Taffy. And I'm just gonna get ink down on the stamp. The tricky part is you can't really see this ink on the stamp because of its color. So you hope that you got it all. I'm just going to put some pressure down. Lift it up and check. Nope, I need another coat. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some more ink on. I mean, you can see that, but it's splotchy. I want it to be good. And then I'll go ahead and use my pressure tool. This is my chunky tool. Back from Chucky Gate. That was, wow, a long time ago. Anyway, this is still the tool I use for putting pressure on because I don't like Skittles, so it keeps its weight. If it was M&M's, yeah, another story. Okay, good. I'm good with that. Now it will even out a bit as it dries. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and get my stamping platform out of the way. And then I'm going to very carefully pull up my mask. I'm just going to grab it from the edge. What I don't want to do is get my fingers in it because, which I just did, I don't want the color smudging onto the white portion here. So now we've got her stamped down, all nice and pretty, and I'm going to put the mask back on its little backer sheet here, and then I'm going to wipe it off really well because it's covered in ink. Those are the things I forget to do, and that's how I end up getting ink everywhere. So we've got that taken care of. Here we are with her. Now we just need to trim this down. So I will be trimming it down to 4 by 5, 3 3/4 by 5. But first I'm going to be doing some fussy cutting here with this portion because I want to spread it out. So, you know, do what you want. It's your stuff, right? I don't want to cut apart my stamp because what if I want to do the whole thing? I don't want to mess with it. So I will just separate these out. And I am going to fussy cut around with sort of like a shadow layer versus doing a big square chunk. Because I, you know, want as much of my background to show through as I can, and part of this is going to have to go over her hair. And I have to cut off that excess. I can't be one of those people who cuts and has a big long apple peel all around. It just bugs me. So anytime it drives me crazy like that, I just chop it off. See, because my finger gets caught right there and then I don't get a smooth cut. So I'll just continue fussy cutting this one out, and you can see how easy it is. I didn't even speed this up. It's just super easy. And then I'll go ahead and cut out the bottom piece because, again, I don't want to be covering a whole lot of my my pretty background with that saltwater taffy color. I'm telling you, I love that color. It's so versatile. And to me, with that dotted bloom stamp, it really gives sort of that, I don't know, 50s vibe. So I'm just cutting around the letters here and not trying to be perfect or anything, but, you know, getting it cut out. I'm going to clip off that excess that's bugging me, and then I'll come back in and trim down here so I've got my little pointy arrow. And there we go. Very simple, very easy. And so we've got some sparkle elements, we've got some snarky words, we definitely have a lady with an RBF, and I'm not going to spell out what that is, but you know. You know. But she does look like she knows everything, doesn't she? So trimming her down again to 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm just, excuse me, I'm kind of eyeballing, you know, what my placement here as far as auditioning where things are going to be going, which I've already done because I've already done this card, right? And I can see I've got a couple of little white spots there still. So I will just take my brush and fill those in. Just like that, because there's still ink on my brush, or oxide. There we go, all filled in. And I'm not worried about the little bit of white around her. It's not a big deal at all. Okay, so here she is. She's going to go on that sparkly mat. And I'm going to go ahead and pop her up. And I will pop her up using some foam tape. So I bought this foam tape from Amazon, and ugh, I'm so sorry, it's such junk. It sticks just fine, but the backer tape is not very flexible, so you'll see it just is difficult to lay down nice and neat. I am going to take a paper towel and clean all this sparkle off because it's just making me crazy. See, just a paper towel and a little bit of hand sanitizer gets it right up. And just wipe any excess off my hands that might get onto something else. I've got this weird little callus on my baby finger knuckle that loves to pick up ink. It's funny. It should become its own little finger. All right, so here we go. See, I wanted to make sure that was nice and clean so I didn't get any dirt on my on the front of my card. And if that's too long, you can trim it off, but you can see how dang stiff that stuff is. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't know when you buy from Amazon. Generally, I'll get it from scrapbook.com when they have it on sale, but they don't have it on sale right now, and it's pretty expensive. And I'm going to struggle with this a little before I give in and get my bigger scissors. These are my dollar store scissors that are supposed to be for cutting sticky stuff, but I just can't get them in there. So I'll just go ahead and grab these scissors and clean them off afterwards. And then I'm just going to do one more in the center. And this isn't too terribly tall. But I don't, even though it was advertised for craft, I don't think it is. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull the backer off. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that to my little sparkly matte layer. Try and get it nice and even. There we go. Can't even believe I got that on there even. And then I'm going to glue these straight down. And And I'll be using my reptile adhesive to get those glued down, and I'm going to glue the bottom portion on first so I can kind of get a good placement on my top portion, because I know that the bottom's going to be smack in the middle, you know, of her. But we can't do the top smack in the middle of her. We'll cover her face. We don't want to do that. But I do want to cover that empty space there so that she appears to be kind of popping out. And I'll just go ahead and get the top part glued down. This is super easy. I mean, the longest part is cutting out the mask for the vixen. And I'm going to glue that one right there. There we go. Then I'll go ahead and put something heavy on so that those stick down. And let that sit for a minute, just to make sure it's good and stuck. All right, that's good and stuck. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue all that just to a white card base. I'm not going to raise anything else up. Want to be able to send this in the mail, you know. So I don't need 19,000 layers of stuff on here. There we go. I hope you guys like this video, and if you do, please give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. And so again, we use the Ask a Woman SD 1160. That is part of the April release. We use the Dotted Blooms and the Vixens. You can get a 10% off using TJ10 color. On any other stamps, the April release is 15% off until April 8th. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really do appreciate all of your support. Have a great day.